Welcome to the Cherry Picker After Dark, the Patreon exclusive version of the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry. With me as always,
Mr. Hole, take your $50,000, lover. Edie of Edward's Truth.
Lover! And
Lover!
Today we are talking about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, released June 17th, 1970. This is more of a cult movie than a horror movie. I mean, it's really like... it's horror adjacent. Like, I'd say that the climax of the movie could kind of fall into...
there's a massacre, so...
There is a massacre. It's like the...
And we cover camp. We've covered camp in the past.
It's like the Malibu Massacre. Like, I'm just trying to think of, like, Texas Chainsaw, but, like...
Malibu Swords and Guns Massacre.
Swords and Guns, yeah. So full disclosure, we recorded this episode a week ago, and as you can probably see if you are watching, Edward's picture is pristine. He's coming in clear.
Yeah, right.
And we were celebrating that. It was just great. And then we got everything to our editor, Jason, and he noticed that my audio was fucked up. And it was like to the point where we just couldn't use it at all. So the good news is that we're doing it over, and we're going to be even more efficient. We've hit a lot of points already, so we're going to try to remember the good ones and bring them up. But just so you know, if anything's weird, we'll reference that. Yeah, we talked about this, but. We're determined to have a good time, and I think we're going to do that just to get the housekeeping out of the way first before we forget. I do want to thank my Patreon supporters. So if you would like to listen to this full episode, this will just be a preview if you're watching it on YouTube or listening to the audio. You can head over to my Patreon account, patreon.com/ZackCherry, and sign up at the Freddy Krueger tier. You'll get access to this episode as well as all of the past Cherry Picker After Dark. So you'll have hours and hours of content of Edward and I just shooting the breeze.
Gabbing away, right?
The gift of the gab we give you. So I want to thank my Michael Myers level Patreon supporters. So thank you to Kyle Beard, Sam Levy, Ali Hamouche, Shane Allingham, Tim McKay, Stephanie Starbright, Horror Slut 95, Bruce, the genetic jackhammer rando, Gary Blasick. You always laugh at that one.
I like it.
Gary Blasick, Sean Flanagan, Josh Carr, Michael Boswell, Brandy Beebe, and then our ghost faces, Eric Champney, Daniel Saturn, Baby Ghoul, formerly Tamika. I guess she changed her handle, but we'll say Baby Ghoul, Tamika.
Boils and ghouls.
And,
I like it.
And Garrison Nichols. So thank you very much for all of your support and everyone else supporting as well. Thank you to Jason Voorhees Gallotello, our editor.
Kermit the Frog I'm doing, I think.
Yeah. Can you do a Miss Piggy?
Kermit. Not really. Piggy. It's easier to do Kermit, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on, you were saying.
That's fair. But anyway, yeah, that's that. We're going to talk about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. So firstly, I guess we need a premise, and then we need to know where it is watchable.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, I'll do the premise, and I'm going to do it with a waning English accent. That,
nice.
You know,
Like
peters in and out.
Like our main character. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Kelly McNamara, Petronella Danforth, and Casey Anderson are super sexy vixen rock musicians who move to Hollywood, get discovered, and are thrown into a whirlpool of drugs, alcohol, lesbianism, abortions, violence, sex, and whatever other proclivities reside beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Very
Yeah.
nice. Very nice. I love it. Where can the good people watch this?
You can rent it individually on the usual suspects like Apple TV, YouTube, and the Prime. But it's not streaming on any subscription-based platforms at the moment. And you can also purchase the OG 2006 double DVD release, which was released in 2006. You can find it on eBay.
I had that one, yeah.
Yeah, that was my first exposure to the movie, actually. It was
really?
fun. And then the Criterion edition is the latest one that is available in both Blu-ray and DVD. And check it out, because it got I think it got really high ratings for its video and its picture.
I mean,
but
I think
ultimately,
everything is...
whoever reviewed it didn't like the movie, because they only gave it 4 stars for the overall review.
How dare they? Well, I think everything from the 2006 release was ported over to the Criterion. Right. There might be some new stuff on the Criterion, but they have the commentary. So this movie was written by Roger Ebert, acclaimed film critic. That's a very interesting factoid about it in and of itself. Directed by Russ Meyer, who was known for his kind of like semi-pornographic drive-in movies, like Faster Pussycat
Midnight
Kill
movie,
Kill.
cheeky fun,
and this is the one that really kind of it's the biggest one, because this is actually the movie that saved 20th Century Fox Studios in 1970. I guess they were ready to go under, and as there was like 2 pictures left. I forget what the other one was, but they just threw everything that they had at this, and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls saved them until, Disney took over.
Yeah, I was just going to say, does that mean Disney now owns Beyond the Valley of
the
Dolls?
I'm sorry, but are the Carrie Nations Disney princesses?
Yeah, and is Superwoman like a bona fide Marvel superhero now?
Or supervillain?
Supervillain. Oh, yeah. Well, depending on which side of the fence you lie.
Yeah.
Anti-hero. Let's say anti-hero.
Yeah. But I mean, the Blu-ray and the DVD, it has 2 commentaries. It has one from several cast members, and then one that's just Roger Ebert alone. And the one, we've talked about, commentaries where it's just, one filmmaker talking about it, and it's just oh, this is so boring as they drone on. Right, yeah, but he's just, a well of information that's just so informative to listen to, and, actually really, both the commentaries are fun. And we were talking about in the shit record that we didn't get to do, there was a segment on the Criterion Closet, as they call it, when the celebrities go in and they pick their things, and John Waters had his time in the Criterion Closet, and this is why I know I love him, because the first movie he went to was Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and he just grabbed that. He's just this is an automatic. And I've watched a few of those to see, I just want to see who's gonna pick Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, because if they do, they're cool, and nobody does. They always pick pretentious titles, look how smart I am, and because I watch this, and just shut up, get to the fun. This movie's fun. I want people that know how to have fun.
Oh, the disdain. But I love that. Because John Waters can speak to those films as well. We won't spend too much time talking about him, but I can talk about him forever. Yeah. What I love about him is he will give equal time to the kind of skin flick that Beyond the Valley of Dolls is, or a slasher movie, or something that's art house or for your consideration Oscar bait. He sees them all, and he can give you an opinion on any one of them. But they're all movies. They're all in the business. They're all this thing. So no one piece of art is below anything else, unless it's Rocky. He hates the Rocky films. I remember that.
I've never seen a Rocky film.
I watched them when I was growing up, and I mean, I've seen the Creed movies subsequently, and I like those, but I'm kind of scared to return to the Rocky films, because I liked them when I was a kid, but I liked a lot of things when I was a kid.
You know what I just watched? Well, because I was messaging you while I was watching it. Cliffhanger. Stallone,
Sly,
and I think, I don't know, because I had nothing to do with Sly, but that's just sort of the trifecta that brings this together, because John Lithgow is the villain in that. We just did Raising Cain, and it's a movie that is directed by Rennie Harlin, who, what was Strangers, Chapter 1, he directed. So I'm just let me see what does this stuff look like back.
Oh my God.
Back then. Lots of slow motion, Lots. It's just really, really cheesy, but I had a good time. It's it's
Rennie
fun.
Harlan action flicks. I mean, he landed after Dream Master.
Oh, and I also watched Dream Master the other day too because I'm trying to watch
there you
all
go.
of the
it's
things.
all interconnected.
I'm on a Rennie Harlan kick, I guess. But Beyond the Valley
genres and periods. Yes.
Beyond the Valley
of Dolls.
So you said the first time you saw it was in 2006 with the
when the DVD was released, a friend of mine walked me through tons of movies and introduced me to like an entire different era, like mostly mid 20th century or early 20th century, a lot of, very, very gay feel to the stuff that we would watch, which was great. And I remember because we had already seen the first one together, and I really enjoyed that one. And then we saw this, so I didn't know what to expect because something about...
You said the first one.
Well, this isn't a sequel, but it's called Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. It's hard not to like Planet of the Apes, the Valley of the Dolls. Like, I want there to be actually a trilogy. I'd like, or at least a next film, a requel, perhaps, like where they just kind of like beneath the Valley of the Dolls, where we go into a den of iniquity and see the bowels of Hollywood.
Russ Meyer had a movie called Beneath the Valley of the Super Vixens, I believe.
Right.
Which
I have not seen.
Neither have I, and I haven't seen Valley of the Dolls either. And I've heard
like it.
Oh, really? I've heard that I wouldn't.
It's definitely subtler than Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, but the camp is present. It's just maybe a little bit. It's a kind of a case in point of like earnestness that goes past the point where for your consideration is really it becomes exploitative almost accidentally, whereas this one I feel like the tongue was in the cheek a little bit more. They were having a little bit more fun, knowing they were pushing the boundaries and exactly what direction they were taking it in, but it still walked a line where we can sit and discuss for hours like the psychological makeup of these characters, which I think makes it true camp.
This is full-on satire, and I think that it's hard because it does straddle that line where you can watch it and it does feel like very serious melodrama, but the comedy that's infused in it is just unmistakable. And I think that when it came out at first, like there was people that got it, but I think by and large, even though it was like very successful, it was just sort of like, what is this shit? And over the years, it just like it developed a cult following. Like this is the first movie to retroactively be given the NC-17 rating, because previously it had been rated X. And I mean, if you watch it, like what would you say? This is always fun.
What would I rate it?
What would the MPAA or MPA, I guess is now. Because there's nothing really like there's like sex and like nudity in it, but I mean
I'd say PG-13 maybe, like not even an R.
No.
Like there are breasts in PG-13 movies, and there's there's not even it's not really foul language. Like they drop one F-bomb or maybe two. Yeah, once where the first one is Harris when he's talking about the situation with Ashley. He says she called him.
That's not like the F, like the gay F bomb, not the.
That one. No, fuck. Who gives a fuck about fuck?
But that is like when we're talking about like foul language.
Yeah. If there's a 3-letter word, like it went right over my head. But I think again, it's more inventive than that. I feel like even though it is beyond a shadow of a doubt exploitative in its nature, I feel like there's a kind of deftness. We use that word quite often here, but there is a deft hand at work in terms of like, kind of like, I guess, bridging the gap between exploitative but still entertaining. Like it never at any point feels like the movie is leaving me behind in the dust. It's continually enticing me and encouraging me to follow it wherever it's going to be going off in its merry way. Like it's a carnival. It's a feast.
Yeah. And apparently Russ Meyer had shot a lot more sex and nudity in the film, but cut it just because I don't know if it might have been a thing like to try to get an R, but then the studio was like okay with it having an X, and by that point it was too late to put the footage back in, so it's just like okay.
Aww.
So
it didn't need it though. It's fun.
it'll never see the light of day. But yeah, I mean, you don't need it. And I feel like any of like there's just breasts and stuff just popping up, and like because it's a Russ Meyer movie, like his movies are known for very like big-breasted women just all over the place exposing themselves. And it's just like it'll be in the most random situations. Like the first scene when they get to Hollywood, they go to the studio and there's just like casual nudity everywhere. And it's just like the way that it's shot, it's almost like Batman, like the animated, or not the animated,
Dutch angle,
the Adam West
1966, 1967 series,
And you were even saying last time that there was like a lot of, it seemed like there were sets and costumes that were reused from it, because at the end of the movie they're at least like Casey is wearing the Robin outfit,
and Roxanne is not wearing the Adam West Batman. That might have gone one too far. She's actually in black, a black Batman, but they're giving dynamic duo fantasy, which I loved.
It looked like it was like maybe like Catwoman, but like with a cape.
Well, she maybe, I could have sworn, I don't know, I got Batman just because of the bold, brash yellowness of the belt, but it could have been trying to replicate the gold belt of Julie Newmar and Eartha Kitt and Lee Merriweather's Catwoman outfit. I don't know, I'd have to give it another look. See, this is the thing, okay, I am glad that we're re-recording, because I hadn't seen this film in, I can't do the math, but it's almost 20 years, almost 2 decades since like the last time that I saw it, wow. I think I watched it once with my friend, and then I saw it maybe later that same year when we were showcasing it for some other friends. I don't think I ever watched it on my own, but it was very vivid. You know, like, I mean, it's hard to forget things, even though I did forget things. But so I watched it after so much time went by before we recorded the last attempt at this pod. So I watched it again with a lot of things that I gleaned from you during that pod, because how far are we in? It has been over 15 minutes.
Let's get into it.
Let's just dive right in. But okay, because and we'll jump all over anyway. We don't have to go chronologically, but there was something about the identity of Z-Man in particular that I had a particular take on that wasn't like honed or anything like that, but I always just kind of perceived Z-Man is introduced as a male character, and then when Z-Man becomes Superwoman and invites, you know, the three over, and Otto's all Nazi'd up and everything like that, and then Z-Man exposes the breasts and everything, I always assumed that there was some kind of situation where Z-Man had begun a process toward becoming a woman, and that you know, the breasts were either, whether it was, you know, surgery or hormones or what have you, that was the path that was going on, and that's what we were supposed to be shocked by. I never took Lance's "you've been a woman this whole time" as, I never thought he was a reliable narrator, let's put it that way. Well, so that's what I perceived initially.
Well, it's interesting because, like, okay, in that time, in 1970, there were a lot of movies where gay characters and like trans characters, which they would call like transvestites or whatever, like, you know, whatever word they used back then, were kind of like, they were either relegated to sidekick characters, or they would be like the villain of the piece. And I mean, Z-Man very much is like, there's a lot of villains in this character, but I think that like he kind of rises up to become the main antagonist, at least by the end, in terms of at least the horror aspect of things. And this is a movie that, I mean, if you looked at it in a certain way, you could, in like today's lens, you could say like, well, this is extremely offensive and yada yada yada, just the way that it portrays like LGBTQ. And we kind of talked about this, and I gave you a take, which is the one that I'm assuming that you're referring to, where there was a much different perspective of the movie, because Russ Meyer's movies in general, the female characters are, I mean, besides being the ones that are the most interesting, they're the characters that have the most agency. They're running the show. They kind of dwarf the men, just in terms of like power and like energy and like sexual energy and all that. And it was actually, obviously, it was Roger Ebert's idea. Like collaborated, him and Russ Meyer, but
Yes,
Roger
the story.
Ebert in his commentary kind of relayed the story of when he decided that Z-Man was a woman, and they're just like, haha, yeah, do that. And it's just the idea that Z-Man becoming a woman, or just showing that this character was a woman, is just giving that character back, like giving women more agency in the story, because here was this character who was a man in the movie who was kind of like, he's the one in charge of everything. He's this huge Hollywood music producer. He's kind of got the power over everything. So it kind of goes in line with everything that, oh, Z-Man is actually a woman. And the takeaway that I had on it is not that Z-Man ever transitioned or was going through a thing. It was actually that there's a very colorful history to this character that is not shown on the screen. Yes. And they refer to Z-Man early on as the teen tycoon of rock, as Kelly says, the teen tycoon of rock. And
say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, and I mean, like, these are obviously very young characters, but here's this guy who's just like, he has a huge successful business. He's got this like mansion in Malibu on the cliffside, and is just killing it in the industry. Where are his parents? Yes. What is his history? And clearly he has psychological issues, and there are things going on deeper down that we don't really know about that are like coming out. So my theory was actually that this was a character who was born a girl and was like raised a girl the entire time, but understood that Hollywood is a world that is, run by men, and that in order to do that would have to kind of disguise himself as a man to do this. And I have actually this perception of just like a really dark history there, that he actually murdered his parents, because where are they? No one just shows up on the scene and just like, who's that? Who's this man or whatever? But they didn't, like, hiding his former identity, comes in there, and it was just sort of like in his own, or I guess her own comfort zone, just living an identity as this man and getting all this like accumulating wealth and success as a man, but deep down inside still having these desires and these attractions to men, because Z-Man is a straight woman.
Now, watching it through that lens, that kind of blew my mind when we discussed it the first time around. Yeah. And I was just kind of like, I have to watch the movie again. Like, I didn't think I was going to do it instantly. I thought some time would pass and I watched it, but I thought, well, we're jumping at this again. Let me watch it again and tell you what I think. You made the movie better for me.
The movie is perfect as it is.
Well, no, because this is the thing. Initially, you always ask me like what my Letterboxd rating would be, and mine, my suggestion was it was somewhere fluctuating between like 3.5 and 4. It bumped up to 4 and 4.5, and I need more time with it. I always need more time before I can assign it. But because number one, I kind of hypothesized before I dove in this most recent screening that I did today, just thinking, is this about, like, what could I possibly assign to this movie, like, if there's a theme? And I thought, is this about the perils of intolerance of sexual fluidity? And then I went in with that mindset, and I just kind of thought, like, okay, anytime anything bad happens to anyone, it's because of some kind of hang-up about sex and about normalcy and about, like, a label, like just like, who am I? Like, and the first kind of point to jump forward for me, because largely through that whole opening party scene, Z-Man is, even though largely in control of the environment, like obviously all those people are there because Z-Man has invited them there. There's a lot of observation in Z-Man's face of like what's going on. Like, even as he's introducing Kelly, or just now pointing people out at the party.
Very Mean Girls.
Right.
I'm showing you the clicks.
Right. Or a Jawbreaker. That's the Karen Carpenter table. Yeah. But there's just something also like whenever they engage in conversation, it's almost like I see Z-Man take a seat back and just kind of observe people and seems to be fascinated with what makes people tick and enjoys kind of lording over this world also because it disconnects them from it, so he can kind of remain in power. If you're too into something, you don't have any perspective. So I just kind of saw him as this puppet master, and case in point, I think that's exactly what he does when he starts introducing Kelly to this person and not that person.
Yeah.
But
well, there's a very the storytelling is so sublime in Roger Ebert's script, because in that scene, like just like the level of detail that's going on, because that's a huge scene and it goes on for a long, but it doesn't feel like it goes on for a long time. Like it's all very very quick paced. And it's really kind of planting the seeds about who Z-Man is, because Kelly comes in and he's meeting her for the first time, and he's trying to get her to, smoke weed or have a drink or whatever. And she's at first she's reluctant, and it's not because she doesn't want to. She's as she says, like, "Oh, no thanks, man. At a scene like this, you get a contact high." Right. but then he offers to her again. And her Aunt Susan is there, who she's just met for the first time that day. And he says, like, "Here, have some grass. Aunt Susan won't see." But what's interesting about that is that he and Aunt Susan are well acquainted, like they're business partners and know each other very well. And in the next scene, or like sometime later on, you have the characters of Petronella and Casey when they arrive at the party, and they're sitting at the bar talking with Aunt Susan. And just because of who Pet is, Petronella, she's more like open about things. Like she'll just talk about anything. She's just like, oh yeah, like, because Susan says something about like, oh, I guess grass is considered pretty square, or liquor is considered pretty square these days. And Petronella says something like they have a back and forth, but that just shows that Aunt Susan would not be offended by something like that. And since Z-Man knows her intimately enough, he would know that that's not a thing. So it's not like when he says, like, Aunt Susan won't see, it wasn't like that he was trying to shield Aunt Susan from seeing Kelly take it. But it was like, Aunt Susan won't see. Let me see how corruptible you are. Let me see what I can... How
can I entice you to do something that feels a little bit wrong?
Yeah.
How hard do I have to push?
How strong is the relationship between you and your aunt, who you just met today?
Your alleged aunt.
Alleged, that's true.
And then, because I mean, that's the thing is, because that was so the thing is, then this time around watching, I think the storyline between Roxanne and Casey was the one that I had the least kind of like of a visual picture about and the least memory of. I felt like returning to it the last time we recorded, I was kind of like, oh, I don't remember any of this. And so this time around, knowing where we were going, I didn't realize that other time around, like how really kind of blatantly they plant the seeds of Casey's lesbianism, like right off the bat. And even the way that Roxanne perceives her and even kind of pursues her, like at the party, I was like, oh wow, it was all there. And I was just kind of like, oh, I don't know anything about these characters, so they're the least interesting to me, and I just moved on.
There's even cutaways, like, because she like gives her the business card, and she's like, come by my studio sometime. It's always nice to like make something for a nice body. And then there's this like cutaway to like a woman's backside, and like I think it might be a hand like caressing it. Just like there's a lot of imagery like that. It's just like the transitions in this movie are just like amazing. It's so on point.
Yes, they are. And I really, that's one thing that really makes me a fan of this. I almost want to call it a montage, which is the party sequence, because like the intercut almost vignettes between the people. Like I thought, like not since Breakfast at Tiffany's when Holly Golightly was throwing her own parties. It's very much in that vein, but I also felt like there was a sliver of Boogie Nights in there because of the debauchery. Like it was much more, because there's no nudity in Breakfast at Tiffany's. There is like, whereas, there's a full painted body, like, like wandering around and people making comments about it and everything like that. And I don't know, there's even, that's another thing that I think pits this in a different position than its predecessor, if not its prequel, Valley of the Dolls. I feel like the debauchery in it is much more kind of like family friendly in the original movie, whereas in this one, this is obviously, you know, even though I say PG-13, I don't think any 6-year-old should be watching Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. But then for me, again, with the theme of like kind of like sexual appetites and like, you know, assigning roles to people and everything like that and trying to live within the boundaries, the case in point is Harris. Immediately he's kind of like we're introduced to the character of Harris, who's kind of like bumping head and just kind of going oh de-dum de-dum de-dum, seems like completely unthreatening and just really happy and easily pleased. And then and the, you know, the in the driver's seat of the car, like when they're making their voyage over to Hollywood, there he is, like not quite bumping his head but he's in charge, he's in a controlled position. And then he moves into this atmosphere, and the first person to spot him is Ashley St. Ives, who couldn't be more domineering and more, I used a word to describe her before, smarmy. And that's usually a word that I think is reserved for men. And I love that I get to witness a smarmy woman, because while she has the right to, you know, pursue any kind of like consensual sex she wants, she's so gross, she's so grotesque in her just kind of like blatancy about it. I find it grotesque, and I don't think I'm a Puritan by any means, but I think just like the level, I think it's the frequency, because like he denies her and rejects her like a few times, and the fact that she just keeps at it, I think that's what I find a little grotesque. It's like, oh, have a little self-respect, hon. Like, you're a gorgeous woman. Just go find someone else. But no, she wants the ones who say no, because there's something, I don't know what it is about Harris, other than the side that than the fact that I get kind of like a Matt Bomer visual from him. Like, he's got some very nice bone structure and some very pretty eyes, but
I mean, it might just be like it's another character that is corruptible, so she can like move in, and because there is a sort of a sense with like a lot of like the Hollywood versus like them coming there and just sort of like what's, you know, like how far they kind of like go down this well. And like she does have some smarmy lines, like when she's just like, "Come into my den," said the spider, etc.
Yes, right. And then she gives him her drink order when he leaves. She's kind of like, "Harris, a deathly dry gin martini." And then she just really like lasciviously licks her lips, like in a really obvious way, where I'm just kind of like, okay, maybe that's sexy to someone, like sexually appealing to someone, but not to me. I can't imagine anybody doing that.
And she's played by Edie Williams, who was actually married to Russ Meyer.
So good.
At the time. And I don't know where she is at this point, but like up until at least like the mid 90s, she would always show up at the Oscars like dressed in like very provocative outfits. Like, she wasn't invited to the Oscars, but she would just show up on the red carpet, and she would have like dogs with her and just just really,
I have to see this.
Yeah, like you got to look up like photos of just like Edie Williams. Oscars, red carpet, see if you can find anything.
The search engine is idling. I will look as soon as we stop recording.
Yeah.
Because that's sensational.
She's a character in the movie and in real life.
Oh my God, that's wonderful. That, you know what, good for her. She's becoming more and more of an icon for me as I
I feel like every character in this movie is an icon.
I mean, I don't use that word loosely, but
you don't use iconic.
Yeah. Well, icon is, you know, same derivative. Yeah. But I just feel like what makes me want to agree with you is just the enthusiasm with which I kind of like greet these characters now, because I feel like the more I watch this movie, the more I'm going to start to develop takes and theories about particular things. Like you brought up the backstory, the potential backstory for our wonderful Z-Man, and I really think there's potential to create a compelling story that only develops, you know, like our insights about this character. Like, I mean, that's the thing. There's I think another component of camp is kind of like characters that are equally cardboard cutouts, like stock characters, but also because you can kind of nail them the second they walk on screen. You're just like, okay, I know exactly who you are. Yet there's dimension because we could sit here and hypothesize about them all day and all night. That's what I think true camp is. But
I mean, I would
Harris,
love to see that prequel, like a limited series. Get Brian Fuller in there now that Crystal Lake isn't happening. Just show 100%. Us like what are the origins of that. We also talked about this is a movie that, I mean, you couldn't remake this because it's so specific to the time, but I would love to see a remake of it, or at least like back when I first saw it, which was like early 2000s, where I was just like, oh, like I would love to see a remake of this in like modern times. And I always, because I told you, like, Cillian Murphy would have been excellent. Like he just looks so much like Z-Man that it would have been great casting. Or if this was like a Tim Burton thing, like it would be Johnny Depp playing him or something like that.
I like Cillian more.
Cillian Murphy, that would be.
And 2 more Batman associations, because Cillian was the Scarecrow, and because Johnny Depp, Tim Burton, Batman, he wasn't in any of them, but you know.
And then just to go with the early 2000s era, Lindsay Lohan as redheaded Kelly McNamara.
I would want to see like Emma Stone or Amanda Seyfried today, like do it. That's another thing. I think if they were gonna do it, I'd probably prefer to see maybe an SNL sketch or a Funny or Die or something along those lines still, like today. And don't get anybody age appropriate, because that might lend itself to another layer of camp. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's big enough to like reach the mainstream, but like the first time I saw Susan Lake, I thought she resembled Kristen Wiig with a really giant hairpiece. Like I could see her playing that role. And then when I was looking at this time around, when I was looking at Casey, I thought Mila Kunis, and she can handle it. She can be funny. I would. And I'm just putting together.
Now we're
like
just dreamcasting.
I know, right?
Our remake of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Anyway, that is all that we have for you for this preview. Remember, you can check out the full episode if you head over to patreon.com/ZackCherry, ZackCherry. Subscribe at the Freddy Krueger cheer. You'll get access to this episode and all of the past Cherry Picker After Darks. We will be back for regular episodes next week with what is it called? Alien! But thank you for watching and listening, and we will be right back.